Good afternoon, everyone out there on social media. I had promised to give you an update today on the court proceedings of Zachary Marquardt, who is the accused or now confirmed murderer of my Uncle Ronnie almost 2 years ago. And he did appear in court in Pembroke, Ontario uh, this morning BC time, this afternoon Ontario time, and did enter a plea of guilty to a reduced charge of manslaughter. At this time, there is going to be a pre sentencing report and other things done prior to sentencing, of course, and at that time, we'll be able to enter in the victim impact statements and he'll face the judge for sentencing. Some interesting facts that uh, were entered into the record today were the general information of the incident that happened, and Mr. Marquardt was extremely intoxicated at the time of the attack, but some things that we were not able to report previously was the extent of injuries. Now, my uncle was beaten to death even after he was unconscious, and even further to that, when he was deceased, the attack by Zachary Marquardt did not end. He continued attacking him. Broken bones, too many to count, plus bite marks and skin that was actually bitten off of Uncle Ronnie's face. His eyebrow was bitten off, parts of his nose, parts of other parts of his face and such. Apparently, over 100 times he was bitten. As I said, flesh and tissue ripped right from Uncle Ronnie's face and other parts of his body. Um, that was located, I guess Mr. Marquardt, after biting the chunks out of Uncle Ronnie, had spit them on the ground close to the body. Mr. Marquardt had then left the scene of the accident, or sorry, not the scene of the accident, but the scene of the murder. And in doing so, he met up with some other individuals who uh, asked him what had happened. He said he didn't know. At that point, he was in his underwear and missing his shoe. That was it. Police, in response to the incident, thought that he had been injured because he was covered in blood. They transported him to hospital in the ambulance. Police further investigated the location where he said that he had been prior to being located a distance from the murder scene. When police and others had asked him what had happened, he said he couldn't remember. He didn't know what happened, but he did state at one point that three girls had tried to kill him. And other than that, he couldn't remember anything more that had happened or what was going on. And the ambulance did transport him to hospital. And the police went down to the location where Uncle Ronnie was. And at that point, the police noticed Mr. Marquardt's pickup truck sitting there. And then they looked around because they could hear music coming from the trailer. They went over to the trailer. They noticed some chairs around a campfire and some empty beer cans and whatnot. Then they discovered Uncle Ronnie's body, which they knew right away that he was deceased. They could only identify him through tattoos that he had. They couldn't recognize him through the face that was so severely damaged and almost eaten. And I say almost because he bit chunks out of him, but it appears that the chunks were spit out close to the body. So I don't know if he actually ingested any of the tissue or skin. But it was a very gruesome and brutal murder, and just something that you don't see in Canada, something that you really don't see around the world for something just so just disgusting. Um, at this point, Mr. Marquardt, as I said, has pled guilty to manslaughter. He was originally charged with first-degree murder, and then there were challenges with looking at the premeditation portion, so it was reduced to second-degree murder. And then with the plea being entered, it's now manslaughter. Once the officers investigating had found Uncle Ronnie's body and the scene of the crime, they did radio another police officer who quickly caught up with the ambulance and escorted Mr. Marquardt to the hospital and to get checked. The paramedics did let the police know that there were no visible injuries, so the blood obviously was Uncle Ronnie's that was all over him. He had some bruising on his hand, but that was likely from the vicious, vicious assault that had happened. Further to that, he was, as I said, escorted to hospital. He was cleared by the doctors and then placed in custody at that time. Mr. Marquardt, as I said, has pled guilty, which now takes it to the sentencing phase of the court process. So, with that said, we will be entering victim impact statements and leaving that to the courts to decide the best course of sentencing in terms of the length of sentencing and what the conditions are going to be. It is really as though two lives were lost that night. Uncle Ronnie and Mr. Marquardt. Mr. Marquardt is not facing life in prison. He will be likely facing around 7 to 10 years, minus the time that he has already spent in custody for the last 2 years. That in Canada, for international viewers, means that he will probably be credited. He's been in for 2 years, so he'll probably get credited for 3. So at 1.5 days pre-trial per day that he actually spends in jail pre-trial. So for 2 years, as I said, that he's been in, he'll get credit for 3 years served, and then given parole at the mandatory 2/3 will be mandatory parole. So, he's got a few more years to serve inside. And as a family, we are very angry. We're very upset. We're very bitter about what he did to Uncle Ronnie. But in keeping Uncle Ronnie's spirit alive, he was somebody who always believed, no matter what, to forgive people, to give them a second chance, and to try to help them to become better and to be productive and succeed in life. So we are going to allow the courts and the lawyers, the Crown, to proceed with their process. And regardless as to the outcome, we do appreciate all of the work done by the prosecutors, by the defense counsel, by the judge, and especially by the Ontario Provincial Police. They've been, I know at the beginning we were a little frustrated with the communication levels that were happening, but they've got a job to do. They've got a lot on their plate, but we cannot say enough about how great the OPP have been overall, and we appreciate their dedication and hard work to finding justice for Uncle Ronnie and getting to the truth. So we really want to thank the Ontario Provincial Police for all of that dedication and that hard work. We want not for Mr. Marquardt to prepare to spend the rest of his life in jail. And I've said this before. Instead, what we're hoping is that he'll go to jail and prepare for the rest of his life. We don't want to see him spend his life in prison. We just want to see that he is able to get the help that he obviously needs, that he takes responsibility for his actions, which is a huge step in the process right now, that he's pled guilty and taken responsibility. And that means a lot to the family, myself, and everyone else, that he did take that responsibility. We want him to, as I said, get the help that he needs so that when he is released, that he is productive, that he can contribute to society, and maybe he can even find a way to help others to prevent them from being in the situation he is in, and to prevent a horrible, horrible, violent death like Uncle Ronnie suffered. So, with that said, thank you everyone for your thoughts and your support throughout this process. The next court appearance will be in August, where they will just go through the pre-sentence reports to make sure that everything is filed, and to just give an update on the status of everything. And hopefully at that time they'll be able to set the actual sentencing date. When that gets set, I'll definitely update again online to keep you abreast of the situation and the procedures. But again, thank you to all of the people in Eganville, Ontario, to all of the people at the First Nations in Golden Lake, and just everyone else who has supported us throughout this ordeal and this process. It's been tough. It's been a challenge, but on behalf of the family, I wish to thank everyone for their hard work and the others for support. Um, it's again, it's been a tough process, and it's not something that we would ever want to see another family go through. So, if you are a victim of violent crime, whether it's a murder of a loved one or someone close to you, whether it is any other type of violent crime, we hope that we can inspire others to find a place of peace and to be able to, I want to say forgive, but I don't think that we are there yet for the forgiveness part, but not to go after vengeance. Instead, go after justice and rehabilitation for the offenders. I think that does society so much more good and brings much more benefit than to be spending money on keeping people locked away for the rest of their lives. And of course, that's not in all cases. There are many cases where people deserve to be locked up and the key thrown away. But especially with Mr. Marquardt being so young, it is hoped that he can still recover his life and make his life have some meaning. For people who know the Marquardt family, we also ask that you please don't blame the parents, the siblings if he has them, whatever. He acted on his own. The actions that he took were his and his alone, and don't take it out on the family. They are suffering as well, I'm sure, knowing that their son has perpetrated such a heinous and brutal crime, and the circumstances cannot be changed. So, just to the Marquardt family, we do not blame you. The responsibility solely rests on Zachary and the actions that he took that evening. And we can only hope that he takes this opportunity to put his life on track and to accept the help that the justice system will have to him. And with that said, we do encourage people to reach out to politicians and such to make sure that the justice system is offering the services to those incarcerated to ensure that they are better equipped with the tools to succeed after prison. And regardless as to the length or the crimes that they've committed, uh, you know, we have to make sure that when these people are released, that they are more productive and able to succeed with life, because that is the benefit to our communities. So let's build stronger communities. Let's stick together, and just compassion is not as common as it should be in society. And just remember to love each other. Take care. Thank you for listening.